Maddie said, my name is Rosanna Stanimirjevic. I'm the Program Manager of the AIS Gold Medal Ready program. And I, along with some of my Gold Medal Ready alumni, which many of you will be familiar with and know from Olympics gone by, are here to share with you some insights around what is mindset and mental preparation, specifically for peak events like the Olympic Games. The guiding principle of the Gold Medal Ready program is that the human system can embrace intense stress, pressure and expectation to win with the right mindset. Let's learn a little about what the right mindset looks like from our GMR alumni, Jodie Henry and Steve Hooker.
I had always wanted to stay under the radar, and essentially by breaking the world record that night, I was the favourite for the final the next night in lane 4.
Just how quick will it be? Can she get close to the world record? She's got it! Broken it in the semi.
My coach and I sort of had to really manage that because I had a history of really bad nerves. The next day, instead of going into the pool and being around all my teammates and around competitors, I stayed at the village. I stayed by myself, which probably was a little bit of a risk as well because then I didn't have anyone just to chat to and chill out with. But I went up to the village pool and had a little bit of a paddle and a swim in there. It was a bit hard because it was full of floaty things like big pink flamingos and things like that because it was the village pool. It wasn't a training pool by any means, but I felt all right. I just had to sort of feel the water basically. We fast forward to that night. Everything went smoothly except when I got in the water to warm up, I just didn't feel as good as I had the night before. My coach saw that there was a little bit of panic in my eyes. Luckily, he just said to me, "That's okay, you might not have to swim as fast as you did last night. We're here to win." So that automatically relaxed me and changed my attitude, and it sort of went from worrying about a time to just going, I'm here to race and I'm here to win.
Representing Australia, Jodie Henry.
My plan, as I was announced, was to wave up to my parents on the right-hand side, over to my sister on the left-hand side, and down to my team on pool deck. And then I just had to smile. So that was our little plan to keep the nerves at bay and just to keep breathing and just keep me calm. And then out of the corner of my eye, I did notice Inga de Bruin, who was my closest competitor, staring me down. I'm not an overly intimidating person, so the fact she was trying to psych me out sort of made me laugh a little bit. So got up onto the blocks and stuck to my race plan. My race plan was always fast, easy down the first lap, and once I turn, I would just say go and head on home.
Jodie looks like she's a winner. Jodie Henry's in front, and she's going to do it again. Yes, she does.
I didn't swim as fast as I had the night before, but I won, and that was the important thing. And first Aussie female since Dawn to do it, so it was a nice little tick in the history books as well.
So the Gold Medal Ready program is shaped by insights from those who have achieved the ultimate success in Australian sport, along with some of Australia's performance psychologists, specialist consultants and academics. We're also so very fortunate to partner with the Australian Army Special Operations Training and Education Centre as part of Special Operations Command to deliver this program. The mission of the Gold Medal Ready program is that Australia is mentally ready to achieve success at the 2020 and 2024 Games. Our starting point is to support medal potential athletes and coaches to be ready for the stress, pressure and expectation to perform best and win at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. There are 3 key pillars of the program. The first one is training and education around mindset, mental preparation and readiness to perform at the Olympic Games. We have familiarisation with the Olympic Games environment and experience, which is something that we haven't done very well in the past. We've prepared for these annual competitions that are our benchmark events and assume that that trajectory of performance actually leads into a performance at the Games. The Games has a unique element to it that we really need to prepare for and familiarise with better and a lot more ahead of time. And the third component is learning from those who have achieved success at the Olympic Games. Here is the GMR program in action.
It was about finding what worked for me. It took me a very long time to learn and to embrace and to accept who I am as a person.
I'm part of Gold Medal Ready because I really want to give back.
I'm part of Gold Medal Ready because I really want to help in any way that I can.
I want others to relish in the beauty of achieving their dreams.
It's all about trying to help the next generation of athletes.
Down, around, the blue cones in the next sprint.
So learning from those who have experienced success is vital to the integrity of the program. The Gold Medal Ready alumni are our gold medal athletes from Olympic Games gone by. When I first sent out the expression of interest to our Olympic gold medalists, I was hoping to get 3 or 4 put their hand up and be part of this program, and I received 25 applications. So I was absolutely blown away by the intent and the want to come back and help Australian athletes and coaches on their way to Tokyo, Paris, LA and hopefully Brisbane in 2032. So it was really quite an amazing response. So where are we now? We are 33 Olympic gold medal athletes as part of our Gold Medal Ready athlete alumni, and I'm really pleased to say just this year we've also started our Gold Medal Ready coaches alumni. So I have 12 Olympic gold medal coaches as part of my alumni, and we have a coaches network. So it's coaches talking to coaches about how to prepare themselves for the stress, pressure and expectation at the Games. There's a key component in the program that no other country has, and that is our commando mentors. So we are very fortunate to have a number of mentors from 2 Commando Regiment who share some of their experiences with the athletes and coaches around mission preparation and mission execution. Let's take a little look at what the daily training environment looks like for them, considering most of us, for those of us working in sport, it's a little different, but training is training. So the Commando mentors share their lived experience of dealing with stress, pressure and expectation during mission preparation and execution with our athletes and coaches. I thought I would share an example of what that is like during one of our camps. One of the key things we're often asked is how does the special operations experience align to what our athletes and coaches are going through? So I think this is a neat example of how they're sharing experiences in this space of mindset and mental preparation.
Back about 5 years to my second rotation in Afghanistan. We knew the next mission was coming up, and it was that night leaving at like 4 a.m, so we had about 8 hours between the two missions. And we were starting battle prep about 3 hours after we got back. So knowing that I had some jobs to do and that I should have started, you know, my preparation, I avoided them. So I avoided them right up until we did the battle prep. Then I went over, I got the equipment that I needed, I prepared my equipment as I was supposed to as part of the preparation, and that is when the overthinking hit. So I'm not a worrywart, but I like to overthink things, and I like to go through things a lot. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. So I obviously went around my team and just started annoying everyone, making sure they knew exactly what they were doing, even though they'd just been doing it for 2 months, and they were just like, what's wrong with this guy? Anyway, I continued this incessantly for about 4 hours until it was time for the communications check, which is what you do just before you go. So everyone lines out, checks their equipment, makes sure that they can talk to one another, and then you jump on. In this case, we're going on helicopters. So we flew out. I'm still there, mulling over the decisive events, the phases, what we're up to, what we're going to do. I'd completely forgotten my primary job. When I got into that familiar position of being at the front, I kind of went back into what I was used to. I guess the key takeaway is that that flow state is one of the most powerful things, particularly for, I'm not an athlete, we call ourselves operators, but we do, you know, things that are familiar to sport. We train complex movements in order to react to things. We move as part of a team. We do lots of things that are very similar. Once you get into that familiar flow of the thing you've practiced 1,000 times, the thing you've seen 1,000 times, it'll get rid of those nerves, and it'll start to help you deal with the, I guess, the feeling of oversaturation.
So the primary focus of the Gold Medal Ready program is to engage with our national sporting organisations and offer a number of different activities prioritising learning and development. The learning and development activities we have are our GMR workshops, which incorporates a core curriculum of 6 topics, which we deliver and co-deliver with our alumni. So the participants are actually getting education and lived experience from our alumni, athletes and coaches, and our commando mentors at the same time. So we're getting that engagement in learning. And I know for probably many of you, getting that engagement from the athletes in their own learning and development, we've got to be really wise in how we start to deliver that, and it can't just be some of the ways in which we did it in the past, which is sit and learn. So we found that co-delivery model's been really, really effective. We also have our GMR alumni forums. These are lunches, dinners, Q&A panels where athletes and coaches can talk to our GMR alumni athletes and coaches and share knowledge, experience and insights on what it is to prepare for peak events like the Olympic Games. Again, everything that we're doing is aligning the mindset and mental preparation to the benchmark event. And that's, again, the benchmark event for us in the system is the Olympic Games. We're trying to identify how do you use all these other competitions at international level as simulation for the Olympic Games. We have our GMR Alumni Connect, which is about to be launched next month. It's just a learning management platform where our athletes and coaches can jump online, they can look at the bios of all the alumni, athletes and coaches, and they can make contact with them to have a one-on-one conversation about the Olympic Games experience and preparation for the Olympic Games. We're really keen on our athletes and coaches talking to a number of our alumni to get that diversity and improve their familiarisation with how they are going to enter the Games environment and competition and be ready to deliver. You saw a little bit of an insight of our GMR Special Operations camps. We're running the next round in November with multiple sports attending. We have all of our alumni athletes who are leading teams in those activities. And again, just a massive thank you to Australian Army Special Operations Command for letting us partner with them on this. It's really wonderful. And the last part that we are just in the process of designing is our GMR Online Learning and Development Platform. So this is going to be very much a video-based, content-driven platform. We are going to allow our athletes and coaches to come onto this platform and do their learning and education in a way that hopefully suits the way they like to learn. So instead of linear progressive education, it'll be much more video-based and clicks and tags where they can jump from alumni to alumni or from expert to expert, and just quick snippets of learning, again trying to meet the needs of how our athletes and coaches like to learn these days. So that we're in the process of just developing and cutting all that content, which is fun. I'm learning how to do that, which is great. So that'll start to be available as of January. The second key agenda item for the program is our research and development. So the key areas in which we are focused is understanding anticipatory stress at peak events like the Olympic Games. We're not looking at this space very much at all in the literature, and I think SmarterBase creates a wonderful platform and an opportunity. So I'll talk through that in a moment. The next opportunity that we're looking at is how we're predicting who can perform under pressure. We all have, very stable endocrine and psychometric attributes that we need to learn a lot more about in being able to deliver on this agenda of human performance optimization. How are we targeting interventions in this space of mindset and mental preparation, and particularly anticipatory stress at peak events, to our athletes? Oh, sorry, what have I done? To our athletes. And being sure it aligns to, what is their type. So we might have a type A intervention, a type B intervention, a type C intervention, and maybe a little bucket for some outliers. So the opportunity to actually understand what does good look like and then align our interventions more wisely is part of a longer term research and development priority for us, part of the Gold Medal Ready program. And it's aligned to a concept we're starting to call digital athlete. So that might be for some Fusion Sport high performance summits to come. So we might be able to get that on the agenda there. And the other great opportunity is building a collaborative relationship with special operations and working and collaborating on things around mindset and mental preparation and human performance optimization. So we are slowly building that, and it's already proving to be a really wonderful engagement and great conversations and great alignment in where we're heading and where we're starting and where we're heading. So it's really very cool. So if I can get you to think about now how some of you are using SmarterBase to collect some of your data. Generally, having worked in high performance a long time, I know we've spent a great deal of our time I remember when SmarterBase was first introduced back in the day, and have set up a few in the different teams that I've worked in. But we're looking at being able to prioritise metrics around keeping our athletes healthy and available for training, ensuring they're recovered enough whenever the demands on them are fluctuating or changing, and we'd always have something for a 5-day break, this is footy head kicked in right now, 5-day break, 6-day break, 7-day break. So you're using all of this information that we're gathering from the athletes on a day-to-day basis to help make decisions around that. I mean, many of you will be trying to understand load and how to modify load. So they're probably the 3 key areas that many of you will be using your SmarterBase for, or the metrics you'll be collecting on a day-to-day basis. With the GMR program, we want to take it another step. We want to start to understand how some of these metrics you're already collecting, and are there some we can add to give us an understanding of when athletes are really wisely managing anticipatory stress for competition. So I can't right now sit here and say it's these 6 metrics, but hopefully in 12 or 18 months I can. So we're on a journey here to try and understand this, but also a great opportunity in the room to get you all thinking about, could we actually be building some indexes or algorithms around this concept with the data that we are already collecting? So So this becomes a really neat opportunity for us going forward to start to include this in the conversations that you're able to have with your athletes and coaches. How are we wisely managing anticipatory stress leading into the grand final? Now, my Giants didn't quite get there a couple of weeks ago, which was, so exciting to get there, but gut-wrenching to sit in the rooms after. So hopefully there's some information here we can be learning as a group around how we are answering this question around wisely managing anticipatory stress for peak events. It will exist. It's not like we are trying to not have it. It is going to be there. How are you embracing it? How are you educating your athletes about how to use it really positively and wisely? And that's a lot of the curriculum in the Gold Medal Ready program. So, final theme to sort of present to you and get you thinking about in your various roles. And I can see coaches in here, I can see performance scientists in here, I can see high performance managers in here. So we've got lots of different roles that you're all playing in your high performance environment. But if mindset and mental preparation for competition is a priority, if you want to be gold medal ready, or if you want to be premiership ready, or whatever it is that is your pinnacle performance, peak performance, can I get you thinking about what is your education and skills training program? I've been in the system a long time, professional sport, and in the CISAS, AIS, NSO land. And we've often sort of gone, let's do a workshop on stress. And then we don't really do anything with that. Let's bring in a guest speaker. And then we don't really do anything with it. So what is your actual package and program? And how are you monitoring and evaluating change here? How are you using the wonderful lived experience in your own environment and sharing knowledge and experience with each other around this space? Often these conversations are about, we're reacting, there's a reactive response when an athlete's not performing well, or we think that they need some mindset or mental preparation, some development in that area. Or let's send them to the psychologist. What we really want is that this is integrated, these conversations around mindset and mental preparation are integrated into the fabric of your culture. And then the last bit is, how are you testing and debriefing mindset skills in competition? Are you actually having conversations about this particular skill or practice and approach after competition? And I would think in my experiences we're talking a lot about debriefing technical skills. Did you play your role? Could you have moved a little to the left or a little to the right? But are we actually debriefing, did you take the right mindset into the game and during the game, or into competition and during competition? So I'm going to introduce my panel in a sec, and I'm very excited to do so that we can continue the conversation. But let me just give you a little bit of an insight to some of our alumni who have so keenly put their hand up to come and help with this program.
It is time.
Oh, that is stunning.
What a dive for Olympic gold.
Castle walking in, goes for the shot, she's made it.
Such a great outside shot.
And none are better than this one. Back-to-back gold for Australia.
33.952, and Amias is a champion.
Sarah Carrigan at 250 metres is going to give Australia the gold medal. She's already smiling.
Pro flies, and no one is faster than Kim Brennan. She completes her set. Gold to Australia. Out court, they have won the gold medal. Jodie Henry's in front, and she's going to do it again. Yes, she does.
It's the home of the heroes, and Emma Snowsill is the Olympic champion.
So that's just a small snippet of the alumni that we have. We have alumni from individual sports. We have alumni from small performance teams, 2s and 3s, and then we have our team sport alumni, our hockey, our water polo. So can I introduce now our panel, and I'm very fortunate to say they are all part of my GMR family, and I thank them very much for being here. But can I ask Sarah Carrigan to come up, Olympic gold medalist in road cycling from Athens in 2004. I've got Ken Wallace here. Olympic gold and bronze in Beijing, 2008, Olympic bronze in Rio, and he's still training, so he is on track. So Jodie Henry from swimming, Olympic gold medalist in Athens, 2004, and Naomi McCarthy from Olympic gold in Sydney 2000 with women's water polo. So I'm going to put on my best facilitating skills here, so wish me luck and hopefully I do us all proud. My first question to the panel, how did stress, pressure and expectation present itself to you in the lead up to and during the Olympic Games? Sarah, can I start with you?
So I went to 2 Olympic Games in 2004 and 2008. 2004 is when I won. So my first Olympic Games, I turned up and we had one opportunity. Some of the other sports, you have a number of heats to go through first before you get to the final. With road cycling, you have one event, turn up, you've got to perform, and then we're done. So for me, leading into 2004, I knew from previous years that going to altitude was the best for me to prepare. However, I had to have a number of tough conversations with my teammates and my coaches to actually make that happen, because part of our team were going to do something different to going to altitude. So it eventually worked out that I would prepare by going to altitude. However, coming back down, it was really difficult to then come back and gel together as a team. So straight away, coming back from altitude, that presented as a stress. And there wasn't much around, I suppose, the support from the coaches or the support staff to help us gel back together with that. So in terms of that stress, one of my teammates had become, she was normally really composed and calm, and she had become a different person than I had seen before. So that in itself was a stress. And also coming down from altitude, sometimes it can be a little bit iffy as to when you start to feel good. And even though I had done years of altitude training, I knew that I always come good in around the time period that we had allowed for the Olympic Games, but doubt had kicked in. I mean, we were stepping up a notch. Here I was preparing for something that, my life dream, my childhood dream of going to the Olympic Games, and the stress, the pressure was there. It really needed to work this time. I needed it to work to the day. I didn't want the benefits of altitude to, kick in a day later or a day before. And so we had simulated a course. We'd gone over the course a year beforehand in Greece, and we were training over simulating. We'd replicated what the course would be. And I wasn't feeling that great. So there was a lot of doubt. Oh my goodness, have I done the right thing? Our team was separated. How am I going to pull this together? I'm not feeling good. This is the time that I need it to feel good. So I really just had to keep resetting myself throughout this whole process leading up to the games. And then on the start line, my heart rate was 124 as I was sitting there. And again, I had to reset myself. This is what I'm here to do. I know what to do. What do I need to do? Pedal and breathe. I really had to reset myself, not only in the lead up, but throughout the race itself. So there were a number of different stresses that presented itself, but the main one was doubt. Have I done the right thing? Have I done enough? I knew I'd done the right thing, but it just kept rearing its ugly head, and I had to try and keep dealing with that. And the difficult thing was that my coaches and support staff hadn't put anything in place in terms of mental preparation. It was all on my own bat to prepare and to deal with those doubts. So I really wish that I'd had a program like this to be able to talk to previous Olympic gold medalists, or to be able to understand what those stresses were and pressures were. I mean, I was able to deal with them because I sought out my own help with psychologically preparing for the Olympic Games on my own. But if I'd had that as part of the program as well, then maybe my teammates might have been able to handle it better as well. So
I'm going to pass the baton, Kenny.
Yeah, so I guess stress. I don't really relate to that word too much. I don't want to relate to that word. Is more like it. The word that I associate it with is expectation. And what is that expectation? I turned up to Beijing, gold, bronze medal, individual events, happy days. The expectation, more so in the, I guess the pressure, is more my self-expectation of what I expect from me. And that reared its head going into London Olympics. So I've gone to 1 Olympic Games, 2 medals, sweet, all of a sudden gone from zero to hero, apparently. And going into London, getting 4th. The expectation to turn up and just win a medal or win 2 medals at the Olympic Games, that was probably the hardest thing. And the expectation comes in many forms and in many ways, and leading into games, leading into world championships, leading into whatever event that actually is, the expectation's always different. It wasn't until a year later or a couple of years later, actually about a year later, that I actually went, 4th, it's not too bad at the Olympics, pretty happy with that. But it wasn't until, and I'm not suggesting that you should all go out and do this, but I had a kid in 2013.
Strategy.
Which changed my whole outlook and whole dynamic on, hey, you know what? Sport's actually fun. We're here to have fun and we're here to enjoy it. We're actually so lucky to be able to do this. And all of a sudden that expectation and that pressure and stress actually changed into something else. Leading into the Rio Olympics, all I wanted to do was show my kids and lead by example and show them things that not many other kids would get to see. And so I'd take them into all the little villages, take them into all the places that you're not meant to go whatsoever. I thought, who's going to stop this little blonde-haired 3-year-old kid, running around? He still remembers the important stuff. He remembers the lemonade ice blocks in the grandstands, all the little bits and pieces. But that expectation across one thing that hasn't changed across every 3 Olympic Games was in training. That expectation that I'm training hard, why aren't my teammates training hard? They might be tired, they've got something else going on in their life, I didn't know. But that expectation that if I'm here, I'm busting my gut to do the best I can. I'm putting my family on hold, putting everything else on hold. And if I see somebody else kind of slacking off or doing one effort hard and one effort easy, one effort hard, and I'm here going every single one, that expectation, it turns into anger. And then leading into Rio, because I was in 2 team boats there, I had quite a few different people to deal with. I had 3 other guys in the K4, which was their only event at the Olympic Games, and I had to understand that. I had another guy in the 2-man boat. That was his only event at the Olympic Games. So there's 4 guys. Then I had the coach, the gym coach, the sports, biomech, all these different people, and I had to understand their expectations as well. And that's what led me to going, all right, let's just take it one step at a time and let's break down those expectations on what I'm there to do. So stress, pressure, however you want to relate to it, it's always different, and I try not to look into the stress part too much.
Cool. Should we get a team sport perspective, Naomi?
Yeah, sure. I can really relate to what Sarah said in terms of actually not being prepared for the Olympics. Our first Olympics in 2000, we'd done a lot of work in and out of the water on a lot of strategy, obviously a lot of skills and fitness and all that sort of stuff. But I know that we didn't do the mindset stuff very well, and that affected me. And Rosie, you asked a question about how that stress presents, and I completely agree with you, Ken. For me, it was performance pressure, because I was one of the starting players and somebody that I needed to step up and play well, and I really felt that pressure. And for me, that manifested in a physical way. One of the good things about GMR is we actually talk about that, and that's part of the education process, that some athletes don't sleep, some athletes yawn. For me, I process food too easily when I'm really nervous, to put it nicely. In all honesty, that is something that if you're competing over a week, that's something that can really affect your competition by day 7. And it's something that you need to be aware of and in charge of. And, for me, I was really lucky that in a team sport, I had other teammates that played really well early in our 7-day tournament, and I honestly didn't really cope with the stress and the performance of pressure until later on in the week, and that was in semis and gold medal games. But it really took me a couple of days to settle down and just get over the fact that I was at the Olympics and that expectation was there. And when I look at my second Olympics, our team came fourth as well, Ken, which was a bit annoying because we should have medalled. But personally, I was much more prepared for that. I played well for the entire time individually. And that was about actually being a bit more aware of what to expect and how to deal with it.
So what has led to your understanding that mindset and mental preparation was important for success? Jodie, can you share with us your insights?
Yeah, so like I said in the video earlier, I did suffer from stress a fair bit when I was younger. So Sydney 2000 trials, they were quite large actually for swimming trials because it was a home games, and I had to have a Maxilon shot to stop myself from throwing up after the semi-final because I made it into the final of the 100 free, and I was not expecting that. So that's how my stress presented. So after that, we basically made it a priority to put me in situations that made me feel like that. So I was practicing feeling that way and feeling stress. And every single time I was put in that situation, when I wanted to run instead of swim, I did well. And so it sort of taught me that that I can perform and I can do it, and it's not that scary. So then by the time it came around to Athens, I was fully prepared. I was prepared to for the controllables. So we sort of talk about controlling what you can control and then rolling with what you can't. So then by the time Athens came around, and there were plenty of situations that came up that I had to roll with it. So my suit, for starters, was not going to be approved by the AOC because I was Adidas sponsored. It had to have no branding of Adidas on it. Thorpe's had no branding, so his was fine. His was just one stripe either side of his back. For some reason, they left 3 stripes either side of my back on the suit, and they weren't going to approve it. So I just had to roll with that. I had to leave it with the people who were going to deal with it and going to look after that for me, and just, basically put in the back of my mind and wear the suit that eventually I would be told that I could wear. So there was that. There was also the bus driver on the way to the semi-final was refusing to get on the bus and drive us. He decided to get off and go and have a cigarette instead. So there was that complete panic that, oh my God, our warm-up is just going to be completely thrown out. So I actually had to block out a few people who were stressing about that situation around me. Purely because of a story that I'd heard from Kieran Perkins, the exact same situation. So that's why I really love this program, because the athletes now are hearing our stories. So because of that story from Kieran, I blocked everyone else out around me and just breathed, stayed calm, and just thought, okay, I'm just going to alter this, I'm just going to alter that. So it was about staying in the moment and rolling with what had been thrown at me. So.
Sarah, did you have something to add to that?
My very first coach when I first started cycling was really into the mental side of things. And it really stood me in good stead for those first few years. And then, of course, when I went into the national program, I mentioned before that we didn't have any mental preparation or training. The only thing we had was at the start of every year, we had it was like a tick the box exercise, how it seemed to me. It was you go and visit the psych, we had our screening, that was done, and that was all that was to it. And over those first few years of being part of the national program, I was still using some of the techniques that I'd learnt with my first coach. But mental training is like a muscle. And I realised that after a while it sort of started to wane a little. And I was like, I need to learn some more stuff about this. So I bought some books and I started implementing some of the activities that I learned in some of the books, and I really noticed a difference in the different races that I was doing, because we lived overseas for 7 months every year. So that in itself is mentally challenging, with the group of people that you're living with and training with and being away from your family. So that in itself was a mental, hurdle or mental challenge. And when I realised these different activities that I was implementing out of the books were having such an effect on my races, because I was really shy. So I didn't talk much to my teammates about how I was feeling or what I was dealing with. And my coach didn't provide an opportunity to talk as well. He wasn't a talker. So there wasn't an opportunity there to talk about that side of things. So then when I went back home to Australia, that's when I sought out a sports psychologist that I could then work with. So that's when I realised how important the mental training was to be a part of, be a part of my journey to be world's best and to win a gold medal and to achieve my life dream.
Excellent. Which mental techniques and strategies were most beneficial to you in your performance under pressure at peak events? Kenny, did you have something that you used and helped you?
I probably, in terms of peak events and at the Olympic Games, I don't feel like I focused in on any sort of specific mental training or focus on anything in particular, because for me leading into it is, the race is only a reflection of the training that you've done. So the mental training for me didn't come in at the Olympic Games or at World Championships. It came in a year before, it came in months before, it came in weeks before, it came in days before we actually started racing. So training should be harder than what the race actually is. Sometimes not always the best paddler wins at the Olympic Games. You have to race the race that's there. And so for me, every day at training was, all right, I'm going to visualise what it's going to be like at that Olympic Games, or I'm going to visualise what it's going to be at that World Championship. So therefore my mental training at the Olympic Games, it all became just normal. It was the normal. I put myself in those uncomfortable positions the years and the months leading into it. So then when I did come to that peak event, it was whatever. It was actually almost kind of cruisy in some ways. We'd only have like one race a day, so it was almost relaxed time. In training, we were punching this morning, it was 21k. At the Olympic Games we raced one. Yes. So you change the mindset that, sweet, it's the Olympic Games. And people go, okay, do you get pressure? Do you feel the stress of the Olympic final? You go, no, you don't, because it doesn't matter what. If you're a racer, if you want to win, it doesn't matter if it's the Olympic Games, whether it's national championships, state. It doesn't matter if it's the club race on the weekend. You still want to win. And so if you take that, expectation of and pressure of, I want to win this race and I want to win that race and that race and that race, the Olympic Games is actually, in some ways, pretty easy. Kinda.
Yeah, it's certainly at the games you're there to win, not to make this perfect performance. So yeah.
The key point is, for me then, was you do it every day leading into it. You don't do it at the games. It's the same with any sort of race plan for myself that we come down the course. We've practiced it so many times that gun goes, did you stick to your race plan? You go, what race plan? I've done it so many times it just becomes natural and that you're going to do it. It's like driving your car to training at 5 o'clock in the morning. You get to training, you're going, geez, I wonder how many red lights I've run this morning, because all of a sudden you're at training. You don't actually realise what you've done, and that's, in some ways, that's what a race is. You've done it so many times before, the race becomes easier.
Rosie, I was just going to say, one of our commanders actually does talk about that a fair bit, the unconscious competence. And that's something that they train to do. So basically, you've done that action that many times and you've been in that situation that many times that you're unconsciously doing that under high stress and pressure.
I also think that we, from a high performance sport point of view, we train many, many hours, but we don't actually contextualise why we're training for performance at the peak event enough. So we just need to make that link a little bit more, that this is your opportunity to build that default unconscious competence ready to deliver it at this peak event. Like having those conversations more and more and more is really what the Gold Medal Ready program is all about. Everyone in the room trains hard, works hard, travels around the world to compete against international competition. So if we can share some of that knowledge and experience and align it to how we want to deliver at the Olympic Games, we're creating some really powerful conversations and allowing critical conversations to be had along the way, so that at the Games we're still having those critical conversations. It'll be a key thing in which we are training at the upcoming camp. How are you having really solid conversations about task performance, performance in the activities, and ensuring that it's all about winning when it counts? Naomi, can you share with us a little how you worked through the week in Sydney? You started off not operating the way that you wanted to, and then you moved through some stages. Can you tell us about how you coped with that?
Absolutely. There was, I guess, two, and it's probably, listening to your story, it's a little bit different in a team situation, playing, because you need to react over an hour to different things that happen, and it's vastly different to going out, I imagine, with a certain race plan, because you've got a general idea of what you're going to do, but you need to adjust to different situations. Players get kicked out and can no longer take part of the game. Someone's playing well, someone's not playing well, and you've got to fill gaps and that sort of thing. But for me, I started the week, as I said, I felt this enormous pressure, and I played the main defensive role in the team. So I was a centre back and I was an outside shooter. So I played point, where I was an outside shooter and feeding to attackers, and I was the centre back, so controlling their main offensive weapon. And what I found is the first couple of days I missed a couple of goals early, and it started to get into my head, and I started to think, you're not shooting well. You're not shooting well. The team needs you to shoot well. You have to shoot well. And then the more I thought about that, I was actually thinking about it as I was shooting in games, and of course I would hit the frame again and again and again, and it really started to play on my mind over the few days. But what I actually did is I went back to my basic or my core, which was defence, and for me, no matter what I was doing, how I was playing, I pretty much always defended well. So I played myself back into form by just concentrating on my defensive role, which was to take out their main attacker. And that gave me the confidence, as I was doing that, to play myself into form. And I actually ended up scoring the crucial goal in the semi-final from, probably one of the longest goals I've ever scored in an international game, to be honest, for us to progress into the gold medal game, and the second last goal before we won. And it was just a matter of me gaining my confidence back by going, you know how to do this. This is fine. And as I said, it was me going back to basics to go, if nothing else, what I can offer my team is that nobody will score in this, from this position.
So a lot of self-talk there, and that's a trained process. Sarah, will you talk us through a little bit of your techniques on the start line before the race in Athens?
One of my techniques that I used a lot of leading up to the Games and throughout my career was visualisation. So even though I was on the start line, I looked down and my heart rate was 124, I realised that I was starting to look at, oh my God, what if this happens? What if that happens? Here I am, I'm at the Olympic Games, this is what I've trained for, and that was what was getting me really hyped up. So I used my visualisation of what I'd practiced so many times previously, a bit what Kenny was saying, how, okay, I just need to bring myself back, and I'd already trained for this so many times in my head of being on that start line. And a big breath, there were 3 things that I did. So big breath, well, that was the first, and then that led me into my 3 things. And then eyes up, lats down, abs on. So it was sort of like this process that then throughout the race, whenever I started to feel like I was running away or getting distracted, or over our 3.5-hour race, a bit like what Naomi was saying throughout a water polo game, we had crashes throughout the race. The favourite crashed out. Things weren't going, how we were expecting, and just having to reset over those 3.5 hours. There was a time when I was away out the front of the race, and I started to panic. Oh my God, I could win this thing. Here I am out the front of the Olympic Games. This is what I've trained for. Here I am. And I realised that then I started to tighten up, and I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight. And then with all of that, I could just feel this dumping of lactic acid in my legs. And it was in that moment again that I had to reset. Big breath, eyes up, lats down, abs on. Do what I know, pedal and breathe. And so that brings me back into the moment, which is one of the things that we speak about within the GMR, is being present and how we share our stories of doing that. And it's really interesting that as we've shared our stories with the athletes, they're like, oh, wow, well, I didn't know that I even had a method of bringing myself into the present. Oh, is that what you did? Well, actually, I've done that before and I didn't realise it. So we're kind of trying to shorten that learning loop. They don't have to fail before learning these things. They can go into their first Olympic Games and win, or they can go into their next World Championships or World Cups and know how to bring themselves back in the moment, or how to roll with it. So for me, it was just that simple process that I'd learned over the years of training and racing that I then brought into my Olympic Games, something that I'd practiced many times.
Yeah, great. One of the key things to understand is when you're going into peak events, and this is my experience over the number of games that I've been a part of, is a lot of the athletes go in hoping that they don't have to use their techniques, that their preparation is good enough to ensure that there are no psychological hurdles, hiccups, self-doubts, etc. So when they present, it almost takes them into this narrow zone of not really knowing how to cope with that because they didn't expect to have to use their techniques. So what we highlight is at the Games, your great preparation, when you get there, you're going to need to use these reset techniques more when the pressure and the meaning of the event is higher. So the Olympic Games is different to a World Championships because the meaning of winning an Olympic gold medal versus being a World Championship is very different. And I learnt that really clearly at my first Games from a jet of an athlete who said, I would give up all of my 5 World Championships for 1 Olympic gold medal. Now, when you understand that psychologically, how deep that sits in your psyche, it's really, really important to be having these kinds of conversations with your athletes and getting them to talk it out and start to mentalise what it's going to be at the Games. It's not going to be this easy, I've prepared, it's simple type process. It's when am I going to use my reset and am I ready to use it multiple times? Have I practiced it enough to use multiple times and have trust and belief in it? Now, as you can see from the stories, the reset techniques are actually quite simple, and you'll be amazed, and we do this in our workshops, that when you actually ask the athletes to speak out their reset, even though they don't know it's a reset, they've all got something. So we're not really teaching them to do new things, we're just asking them to better understand the good psychology that they already have and make sure that they're actually aware that these are really solid techniques. So it's a really empowering type of education program from that point of view, and then to get validation from our Olympic champions that, yeah, that's how I did it, or I did it slightly different, get that diversity so that they go back into training and into competition actually wanting to practice it. And then if you as coaches and performance staff are actually having conversations with them going, oh, how did your reset go today, or what did you use today? If we could just add that one question in as part of a performance debrief, I would love you all, because then we change the game. Okay? We're not doing it enough. We're not asking these questions enough. And you'll be surprised that your athletes actually have unbelievable strategies and skills already integrated into the way that they go about what they're doing. So my final question to the panel, how do, most of the people in here are coaches or playing a performance support role, how did performance support staff play a role in supporting you as athletes to be more ready to perform at the Olympic Games and achieve success? What would be some of your advice for them? What helped you? What doesn't help you? How can you give them some guidance? Oh, sorry,
Yep.
Jodie.
I'll go. That's
Sorry.
fine. So I had multiple times in Athens where support staff either helped or did not help. So I think knowing your athletes, everyone in the team, it can be the person who takes lactates afterwards. To know what the athlete's like and how they respond to things, I think is so important. How I said my coach just said to me, you might not have to swim as fast. That automatically just changed my my mental mindset from being negative to being, oh yeah, okay, cool, let's go do this. So, and then I've also had a situation where there was sort of a little bit of a thing between me and the team manager. And that could have, if I was a younger athlete, that really could have blown my Olympic campaign out, because I could have then, overthought what she said. Or so I think it's really important for everyone on the team to understand the athletes and how the individual athlete ticks.
Yeah. Kenny, jumping in?
I guess we at the Olympic Games, I love some good data. So
sound data guy.
When I was younger, I didn't really care. All I wanted to do is, if I break it down enough, I sit in a little boat, I try to get from here to there as fast as I can. Done. The older and the more into it you get, you go, actually, I want to get to the edge of that cliff, but I don't want to jump off. And that's how we'd use data to come back and find where that edge of that cliff is. And we'd use it in training, again, in the months leading into it. So at Olympic Games or World Championships, we knew what to expect. I'd come back, we used a thing called it's a Minimax, and it measures boat roll, velocity, strokes per minute, it measures effective work per stroke. A lot of the time, stuff like a lot of the people will bring their stroke rate up, but if their velocity doesn't come up as well, then why are they doing it? They're just burning energy that they don't have to start with. So I'll come back out off a race at Olympic Games, and our data guy, Dave, he will come back with this Minimax data. And then I go, I know what I felt in that race. What's the data say? Okay, great. And then not only relate that to myself, but then I'll relate that to the Germans next to us. I'll relate it to the Serbians next to us. And I'll relate that back on. I know that they kick there because even though it's on the water, everyone thinks that they're talking quietly. It is so loud, you can hear everything. So I know where they're picking up their race. I know what they're doing. Okay, great. Let's adjust that race plan or that data. Let's squeeze a little bit more there, or let's push a little bit more here. And I guess that's how some of the ways that we'll use that data to then go into a semi-final, to then go that little bit faster, or we know how to race that person. And again, it's not always the best person, the fastest guy there. It's the person that races the race, and the person that's in that event that day, that time, in that moment. There's a couple of things. People have, one of my best mates' dad, don't have a good race, have the race of your life. And you kind of go, oh God, that's pretty gnarly. Another one was, just go for it. You've got nothing to lose. And the more I thought about that, I went, actually, yeah, I don't have anything to lose. And then another one is, the race is going to happen, and I'd probably use this going from a heat to a semi to a final. The race is going to happen no matter what. Whether you're in it or not, the race is going to happen. You're not bigger than the sport. You're not bigger than the Olympic Games. You're not bigger than World Championships. Whatever it is, the race is going to happen. Do you want to be in it or not? So what do? Get through it. And I guess coming back to the data that we use so much of it in training just to squeeze that 0.6 of a second, 0.4 of a second. That fourth place in London, that was 0.16 that I missed a medal in that. In Rio, we got a bronze and a fourth. We missed that by 0.6 of a second. Beijing gold medal. Between first and ninth was 1.5 seconds. Between myself and second place was half a second. So we're not talking much time, and when you're at that kind of peak end, we're chasing that split second, we're chasing that 1%er. And in training, that's how we can do it, by using the data to get that 1%er or just get that point nothing of a second over 1,000 metres. If you know where it is, can you let me know? I'm still chasing.
When I watch Kenny's little, when we have the alumni video, and I watch Kenny's just come across the finish line, I still go, I don't think you're going to win that. And then he comes across the line first. I'm like, oh yeah, you do win it. It's awesome. More about performance support, Sarah, Naomi?
I definitely redirect what you just said, Jodie, in terms of anyone that is travelling with the team and involved with the team actually really getting to know their players. And that's probably easier in a team-based sport where, anyone that's associated with the team has probably travelled with the team quite a bit that year or even over the last couple of years. So getting to know what the athletes like, what sort of interaction they like, do they want to be talking, do they want to be left alone? And also, I guess, trying to understand the dynamics within a team can be important as well. So if you notice something, it might not be that the support staff goes to me, but they might go to the person that they know within the team is my support person to go, hey, do you need to have a chat to her, or is everything okay?
Really interestingly, I agree, would concur with what the guys have been saying. Because we lived overseas for 7 months every year, we'd get to know each other pretty intimately. And then at the Olympic Games, I remember a number of the support staff, you could just feel their energy. I'd only have to go like this and like, yes. Whoa, it's all right. I'm okay. So you could almost, some of their nerves would then come onto us as athletes. So I think if I could do it again, it'd be about trying to help the support staff just be as they are usually, rather than, you've got to have nerves, I suppose, just as the athletes are and as the coaches do as they go into the Olympic Games, because, you guys have a lot riding on it as well. You've invested so much time and energy and passion into, getting those whatever of a seconds. But it can really play, even with the way the masseur would then massage, you're like doubt can start to stick in. Or hang on a minute, you actually did that slightly different. Was that a tight spot there? Or they'll make a comment, and then that can just start that doubt or that that downward spiral, and then you just again that reset pattern. So the support staff has such a major role to play in keeping us on that level. Well, how I found it anyway.
Yep.
The worst thing a support staff can say is, "How do you feel?" By a mile. The worst thing that.
And what do we ask in Smarterbase every morning?
How do you feel? Is there anything I can get you? Nah, sweet. Done.
Yeah.
We'll go away.
Yep. Having been on the other side of having been a support staff for 3 games, it's really important that it's business as usual and how we've practice being together at multiple events and we're there together. So your contagion effect as a coach and a performance support person is really important to have some conversations about as well. So I guess the key thing we'd like to leave you with is please have critical conversations about mindset, mental preparation with your athletes, with coaches, with your performance support staff. Open up the dialogue and you'll be quite amazed at the quality of insight and the strategies and capabilities that are already there. We just need to identify them as really important priorities to be practicing all the time in readiness to get to the games and use the strategies. That's a key thing. So not getting to the games and hoping we don't have to use them. Not getting to the grand final or the peak event and hoping we don't have to reset or set our psychology or set our mindset or have those conversations with ourselves that allow us to be in an optimal state and ready for the challenge rather than hiding in fear. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to come out here today and present to you. I hope we've positioned a few different things to get you thinking, and thank you to Fusion for having us. So thank you very much.